Welcome to the Hard Lessons podcast. I'm your host, Charlie, founder of an Oakville-based construction company. Each week, we dive into the world of business, personal development, and the entrepreneurial journey. We'll be talking with successful business owners who've been in the trenches and learned those hard lessons. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take business to the next level, you're in the right place. Join us as we turn hard lessons into stepping stones for success.
And I found that quite cool how you guys were able to analyze the past, you said the past 20 people that was let go. And then that's how you came up with, I wrote it down, your what was it? Fix
three
it.
core values.
Yeah. The three core values.
Fix it. Yeah.
Face it, fix it, leave it better than it was when you got there. And just gratitude, being thankful for being here. And so that solely came from looking at those people in the past and just analyzing it and then going back to okay, if these were in place, this would have been avoided, correct?
Yeah, you don't really learn much from the success. You learn everything, all the biggest lessons we learn are from, the biggest failures that we have. And I think the key is just not to waste those failures because they're great opportunities to look at your, who you are as a person, your business, and go, what could I have done better here? And what can I do differently in the future?
Interesting. Good point. Now, we're letting people go. Indeed, I hate it. It sucks all my time. Your hiring process, how bringing people into the business is just as important as letting them go. Walk us through what it looks like to be onboarded or what you guys should find A players.
Yeah. So it's I haven't figured it out at a high level yet in terms of bringing in managers from outside. All of our managers have been promoted from within so far. I've been very lucky that a lot of people in key roles have been coming from referrals and people that know us. But for the low level roles, doing the work and the actual technicians, I would say I've gotten pretty good at it. And so after over a decade at this point of funneling through people who are just applying for jobs blindly, we've gotten to a point where we can really, I can tell you what percentage at each stage someone will work out. So it's kind of like a sales funnel. I can say if someone gets a first interview with us, there's a 10% chance that we end up hiring them. If they make it to the second interview, there's a 25%, and then that climbs up to 90% when they get to the last stage. And that's not just 90% that we hire them. That's 90% that they end up getting hired and actually staying for longer than 3 months. And so the way that I could talk for hours about this, but I think step one is really just understanding Indeed and being able to get a massive pool of applicants. If you're not getting at least 25 applications a day, you can't be getting enough people to actually make a good decision comparatively. You have to be able to interview enough people to get the best of the best. And then from there, there's an initial call where I'll spend, 3 minutes just telling them the qualifications they need. And if they don't meet it, we just end the call immediately. And then I'll spend another, 7 minutes if they make it past that. So a full 10-minute call explaining to them what the job is. And it's kind of like a reverse sell where I'm telling them all the reasons they wouldn't want to work here, which would excite a lot of people. Hey, it's outdoors. So if it's raining, it's going to be kind of shitty to work in. And you got to be up really early for this job. And we have unlimited hours. You're working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. And a lot of people will go, I don't want to work that much. I don't want to climb ladders. I don't want to be outside. But to a lot of other people, they're like, oh my God, I've been in a warehouse my whole life. This sounds amazing. The biggest two complaints that I get from people applying for jobs is my last job didn't have enough hours. And so we would always run out of work. It was unreliable. And the second thing was my boss was an asshole and it sucked working. And so we fixed the hours problem. And the boss is an asshole part, obviously we're always getting better at that. But we've really built the company around how do we serve the staff best? And so we've got bonus structures, we've got incentives for performance, we've got ways where, if someone's doing a good job, they really get appreciated. And so if they make it past that first call, I'll usually ask them how excited they are about the job. And if they say anything less than a 9, then they're not a fit because you're only going to be the most excited about it on that call. And then it goes down. So if someone's like, it's a 7, maybe I could do this job. Then I go, okay, cool. Maybe we'll call you, and then we end the call. And so from that point, anyone who's 10 on 10 excited, they sound like a good fit. I'm telling them about the job and they're like, oh yeah, this is amazing. I'm really excited. I'll slot them into a video interview, which is a 5 to 10 minute call where we meet face to face. I run them through expectations, ask them a couple questions, really just, seeing if they're kind of like sketchy or they're a good fit. And then from there, the most important part is we schedule them for an orientation. And so the orientation is basically, let's call it 2 hours, where they come to the office on a weekend and a manager will walk them through all the expectations about the job. They're essentially hired at this point, and we'll teach them how to climb ladders. We'll make sure they're not afraid of heights. And we'll see what kind of questions they ask. And if they show up late to orientation, then they're let go immediately. If, they're not too comfortable on the ladder, and depending on their attitude, we might let them go because it could be a safety issue, or they might end up quitting a week later. And from there, it's just, we see who the best people are at orientation, and then we tell them, hey, you're going to start on Monday or Tuesday or whatever it is. And they will work with the manager and another partner for, 5 to 10 days until they're able to be good enough. And then we slowly, like the kid in the pool, we step further and further back, and then we just manage them from a distance. But it's really just making sure that first 2-week period, they're super comfortable and they're a good fit for the role. And we have a lot of criteria that we look for in terms of like, do people move with a sense of urgency? Are they walking and checking their phone, or are they running between tasks and making sure they're on time? Are they smiling all the time? Are they excited to be there? Are they trying to be thoughtful for the client, or are they just like here because it's a job and they're here to come and to show up? Anyone who's just here to clock in and out, it's an immediate like not fit. We don't want that because they're not going to last. They'll end up finding another job. So we really want people who we believe could be here for life. And the moment we feel like maybe they won't be here forever, that's when we decide, this isn't a good fit.
And again, it's not like a hack getting around. You mentioned Indeed, like hundreds and hundreds of people you're calling. That's a shit ton of time going through all of them. But
yeah,
you found that that's just, it is what you need to do. And
yeah, you can make it easier. Like something I'm working on doing next year is automating that process. So there'll probably be like, if I have 1,000 applications, I can kind of have everyone get an automated email and they could fill out a form. And then whoever doesn't fill out the form, maybe I don't call them. But up until this point, we haven't felt confident in the system enough to do that. But yeah, it's really that. It's like, I barely look at CVs. I pick up the phone. 80% of people don't even answer the phone. So they just get an automated text saying we called them. If they don't call me back, we never call them a second time. And then from there, it's just, speed dialing. They're like, hey, is Jeff there? Guy answers the phone. Hello. And you go, oh, sorry, wrong number. You hang up. Next guy. And so it's really a game of kind of speed dating with people to see if it's a fit. And the moment you get someone who's like, hey, Jeff here. And you're like, oh, Jeff. Okay. Yeah. Like you're someone who sounds like I would want my clients talking to you. I would want you in my house. So let's keep talking, and just being ruthless about, where your standards are for what the type of person is that you're looking for.
And how does that call go when you are hiring them? You mentioned the 110, but I know before you said you make them think they didn't get the job, and then you kind of flip it on them and see how excited or fired up they get.
Yeah. So that's usually like at the very end of the process, like when we're letting them know whether like that they got the job.
Yeah.
I'll basically I'll let them know like what actually happened, which is rather than starting the call with, hey, you got the job, I'll start the call by telling them, hey, so just so you know, there were 48 other people this week that we interviewed. And so automatically when you say that, people kind of just, assume they're not getting the job. And I'll say what I liked or what I liked about them or what I think they need to work on. And then I'll kind of end it on just like a really positive note. And I'll say, but just so you know, like felt like we got along. I felt like you worked hard. So we want to give you a shot at joining the team. And usually it's a pretty accurate predictor of like whether or not someone will do well here based on like how excited they are to take it. So the guys who are the most excited are usually here for years at a time. And the guys who are like, oh, okay, cool. Where do I show up on Monday? I'll flag that and I'll let their manager know, hey, like this guy didn't seem that excited. Like, I don't know if he's just here because he wants a job or because he's actually excited to be here. So just keep an eye on him. And, that's, you talk about how on top of your staff you have to be when they show up late. You can imagine how on top of them you need to be. If someone answers you with the wrong tonality, you really got to read into it.
There's levels to this shit. And you guys have gotten so in depth in like all areas. It's impressive. And going back to marketing before we close things up, I'm curious like how your Facebook and what you mentioned to me earlier this year is like leads. It's a level you guys have beat. It's like something that's figured out and not the constraint of the business anymore. And we found getting leads is one thing, but quality leads is another thing. And sure, you can bring in a shit ton of people with like discount Facebook ads or like we can bring in a lot of people, but if they don't actually want the service or are good, then it doesn't even matter. Like, what have you guys found with trying a million different things and just running test after test and studying it? Like, what's kind of worked for you guys, whether it's Facebook or Google stuff?
Yeah, so we actually haven't run Google ads yet. It's all been organic. And then Facebook, we started this year, Instagram specifically. And I would say that I still know nothing, like relative to friends I have. It's like you said, there's levels. And so what I would say we have figured out is that, I think it's always been the same story in advertising, right? Like when you're a viewer getting sold something, like you want to feel a sense of like refreshingness. You want to feel a sense of honesty. You want to feel a sense of the fact that like whoever's selling you isn't selling you to take your money. They're selling you because they genuinely want to help you. And so I kind of took that and I translated it into a video, which I made where we've done a few videos like this and they always outperform the other videos where I really just like picked up an iPhone, introduced myself on the camera and said, hey, my name's Dan. I run Shine Windows and the Deck People. It's a local Toronto business. Here's what we do. I'll show them a little bit about what we do. And then I'll let them know, hey, like, if you need anything, please click the link below. Let us know. We'll give you a call within 24 hours and we'll get you set up for a quote. And the unanimous feedback that I usually get from most people is that they're our ideal demographic. They're older folks who have kids that are fully grown adults. They don't want to do the work anymore themselves. They saved up their whole lives to not have to deal with this stuff. So they want to hire someone else. And the story is always the same. I don't usually buy things on Instagram. I don't click these ads, but you seemed really honest and genuine and I wanted to give you a call. And I think just having that transparency of like who we are and the fact that, we're not bullshitting people. We're not just trying to sell them and get out of there. Like we really do want to build a relationship. We do want to do great work and we do, try to offer the highest tier service possible. It speaks to people. So just through, we could talk about ads for a while, but just from the customer standpoint of being able to create a video like that, it outperforms all the tricks and hacks you have of, 10% off today and here's a $200 credit. And it's like, people want value. They want to feel like what they're getting is the same, if not more than what they're paying for. And the only time you have a problem is when people feel like that formula didn't equate on their end. They didn't get what they paid for. And so I think it's really just about trying to communicate from the moment we knock on their door or from the moment they see our video that, we're here to serve. We want to help them. We have a product that we can actually show you works. It doesn't peel. It's 3 years old. You can see it in the video. We're not lying to you. And if you just give us a call and you meet us in person, there's a very low chance you're not going to like us. And getting our foot in the door and then just going, step by step from there. And now we're at a point, obviously, where we've done thousands of homes. We've done, someone on almost every street in Toronto. We're still very small relatively when you think about the millions of people that are in Toronto, but it adds up slowly. And, you see a sign here, you have someone knock on your door there and then you get our ad and all of a sudden it's a lot more compelling than, some stranger who's just like dropping a flyer and never speaking to you.
So from Instagram and then meeting there, like the trust thing, I fully agree with. I think that's huge opposed to some BS thing to just get them in the door. But once you're there, then what's your sales process? Is it guys giving pricing on the spot, getting to the bottom of thing, yes or no?
Yeah.
To avoid just emailing quotes, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So we don't email quotes. It's pretty much a waste of time. There's specific situations where we make exceptions, but for the most part, it's, if someone's asking you to just email them a quote, then there's a 99% chance that they are not actually going to end up working with you. And so, it's a fine line of doing what's in the best interest of your business and what's in the best interest of the homeowner. So basically the process that we have is built around trying to make it very effective for us, but also very effective at, not letting people waste their own time. Because most people don't know what they want. They don't know what the process is like. And they just think that if they get 3 emails, they're going to make a decision on price. But price without context is always overpriced. It's very difficult to, justify paying anything better, anything higher than the lowest price if you don't have context. And so that context requires explanation, and that context requires, us asking them questions and meeting them and understanding. And so what we do is once they click the ad, we'll give them a call as soon as possible, and we'll kind of walk through the project with them, and we'll give them, a rough idea we'll ask them what they want, and we'll kind of make a general recommendation. And then depending, obviously, if this is decks or windows, if decks are more applicable to what your process would be since you're in landscaping, but we'll give them a general idea of like how much they could spend and what the budget would look like. And so right from there, sometimes you get people who click the ad, they're like, I love the ad, but I don't want to spend more than $150. And you're like, this is minimum $5,000. There's no way anyone could do this. And so you want to just deal with most of those issues on the phone because it's a lot easier than just going there in person. And then that's essentially a qualification call. And then on that qualification call, you're basically saying like, hey, is this something you're ready to do now? Is this something, that we're on the same page for budget? Because I don't want to waste your time either. We're also, when we're at peak season, we're at a point where we're getting 100 phone calls a day. So we can't afford to go to all these houses and just meet people for quotes. So it's really trying to do as much as we can over the phone. And then if everything lines up on that call, we set up an appointment and we let them know, essentially it's going to be roughly within this price range, depending on what you want. When we come by in person, we can finalize everything, but I just want to make sure like you're good to go. If it's just you, then great. If you need your wife to help make decision on colors, then let's make sure she's there. That way we don't decide something and then 3 months later we come and do the job and she hates it because we picked something without telling her. And then we go in person and we answer all their questions. We measure everything out. We do the quote on the spot because everyone's busy. And the moment you leave their house, they, you send them an email 3 weeks later. Like to me, if contract, unless it's for some major like building of a house, contractor doesn't give me a quote on the spot, I pretty much just like rule them out. They've lost like 50% credibility with me. Cause I'm like, I just had you in front of me. You were just at the house. We could have gone through this in person. You could show me the quote. I can ask you any questions. We could just put this to bed. But instead, you're going to make me wait 4 days. What? So the measurements are going to sit on the dashboard of your car. And then you're going to like send me a note on Thursday. You're not going to answer. And then I'm going to have to text you, hey, where's that quote? I'm looking to make a decision. And then they're going to send it to me. I'm going to forget what we spoke about. Then I'm going to call them back. And it's just a big waste of time. And so and what we're doing is fairly straightforward between windows and, painting and staining. There's not a lot to it. So I'll basically just, I'll go through the quote with them on the spot and they know we're doing all this. And I'll say, these are the tiers or options you asked for. This is the pricing and how do you feel? And we'll kind of work through it. And, most of the time they already know what to expect. They know what the budget is. We've already spoken about it verbally. So they're able to make a fairly quick yes or no decision. Sometimes people can't make a decision on the spot because, whatever it is, maybe they aren't ready or they had something come up or something surprised them. But most of the time we try to set all those expectations before and then we collect the deposit and, we book the job in. And I would say 96% of the time people are just, good to go when we meet them because we try to create like more value than what it costs. If the price is $3,000 for something, then we're not coming in there and going, okay, here's a quote for $3,000. We're wowing them with, how we're going to do the job and what we're going to be doing and how happy they're going to be by the end of it. And usually by the end of that conversation, they're walking away going, you know what? Like, I actually have never worked with a contractor that made me feel as good as Dan did just in the last hour. Like, he showed up on time. He was super nice. He pet my dog. He was really polite. He wasn't pushy. He answered all my questions. Like, this is what people want. They just want to pay someone for a service and they want to get what they paid for, if not more. And that's usually where most contractors fail.
Just be good.
We were laughing the other day where we were like, it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people look at what we've done and they say, it's very impressive and good for you. And it doesn't feel that way to us because our standards are so high for like what we want for ourselves and how we operate that, it's almost like if everybody did a good job, our business would not do as well as it does. And it's unfortunate for most of the world, but it's just the truth is that when we hire people for our house, when we hire agencies, when we work with people on social media, when any time we work with people, 99% of the time it's disappointing. They sell you this and you get this. And they don't answer their phone on time. They don't do what they say. They make excuses for things. And so the bar is just so low across the globe, like even for restaurants as well, right? Like how many restaurants do you go to where you're just like, like this wasn't very, like,
yeah.
They could have literally made a better sandwich. That's it. And so I think it's very refreshing to people when they can go in and just go, this is exactly what I wanted. And I'm just so happy that I'm not disappointed. So not disappointing people, I would say, is like the key to success. The bar is not that high.
I feel across the board, but especially contractors, like they've used it as an excuse, this shitty persona that we have of like, okay, I'm a contractor, I can show up late or do things and lose professionalism. That's a good point. Now you've got repeating clients, but you've also got higher ticket service that you provide as well with the deck stuff. I'm curious how you guys have split that up and how you're able to keep them working together and feeding each other almost. This year, 6 of our maintenance clients went with another hardscape contractor because they didn't know that we did like hardscaping and stonework, and it really, really pissed me off. And all we do, like we send out emails, like holiday emails, and just like touching base, like Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Canada, whatever it is. But that's all we do. And I was extremely pissed when I found out that number at the end of the year. So I'm curious how you guys kind of make them work.
Yeah, it's it's a never ending game. Very difficult to run 2 different services. There's so many services that we offer that people don't even know about still because they just don't think about it, they forget. And you send out emails, it's not enough, right? Like people see a Thanksgiving email and they just delete it. They're like, another Thanksgiving email.
Yeah.
So we'll send out like monthly texts and emails targeting whatever service we want to do, depending on the season. So in deck season, we'll send out a text that only talks about decks. It won't talk about all the things we do because people get bogged down and they go, if the first thing isn't applicable, then I'll just delete it. So I'll send out all my window cleaning clients a deck text saying, hey, we're about to fill up for deck season. Do you need anything? And so it's like marketing. Like it is marketing. You need omnipresence. You can't just like say it once and hope that someone gets it. You got to, on all of your flyers, it should say it. And then you knock on their door and then you remind them about it. And then you call them and you say, hey, Susan, it's July, you've been using us for 6 months. I just want to know like if everything's going well. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe that you're actually calling to ask me if I'm happy with the service. Like no one does that. And then you go, okay, well, just so you know, we also do decks as well. If you need that, please just don't forget. And she's like, oh, thanks for reminding me. I think I do need my deck done. And it's just doing that over and over and over. And then the team is there and the team gets a bonus if, if they spot a deck and they say something. And so it's just about building up that ongoing reminder in everybody's thing where every interaction they have, they're being, do you need this other service that we offer? And it's tough because if you have, 3 or 4 or 5 services like we do, people don't remember we do power washing. They don't remember we have gutter guards. And so now you're talking about building out like a completely separate brand and having another lawn sign and another website. And so it's not easy, but yeah, the windows was really the catalyst for that because it was about just visiting the person's house over and over again and having this ongoing reminder in every conversation. And after a few years, people start to remember, and then you've got someone who really knows you.
And like, is it strategic having both of them split up? And like, why is that? And is that done from the start? Like I know Shine and you keep the deck people separate, right?
Yeah, it was. In the beginning, it was Shine. And then we were like, this is kind of weird. We're staining decks and we're a window cleaning company. And so and not only that, but we're like specialized in decks, like beyond painting companies. So we decided to just call it something else because we were like, we need a name to like make it legit. And so we gave it the name. And then we were like, oh, we might as well make some signs for it. And then it became this like, ongoing conundrum, which was like, we have 2 brands. Like, are we running 2 companies? Like, how does this work? And so to most people I know who are running, much higher ticket things like garage doors or window installation or renovations, I don't recommend doing multiple things like that because usually the market is big enough for your one thing that anything else is a distraction. But it just so happens that we chose to be in an industry where there's fluctuations in seasonality and demand. And, you can only clean windows for, let's say, 8 or 9 months a year, but you can only stain decks for maybe 6. And then in the middle of the season, so like August and September, nobody really wants to clean their windows because they've done it in the spring and the fall. So we need this filler to keep our staff busy. And then, we're power washing people's decks, but then if you power wash it, it can kind of, make the wood pretty rough. So they're going to want it sanded after. And then how are you going to do all that and not seal it? So decks kind of happened as a happy accident because like we were just very well versed in the painting industry before we got in. We got to a point where we were actually going to shut down all of the painting and staining. And then it just became a headache with the amount of warranty calls that you get when you're doing outdoor painting and staining. Nothing lasts in Canada. And then once we actually figured out a process where we could really guarantee the wood and that it wouldn't peel, that was where we said, holy shit, I think we're onto something, because I called every other company in the city. None of them were offering a guarantee. None of the paint reps would stand by their product. And we said, well, if we use synthetic oils and we use the right product and we apply it the right way, then we can actually stand by this. And it's a recurring model where every couple of years, someone will need us back to take care of their home. This does fit in within our wheelhouse. And so it's not something I recommend. Like, I don't think I'd be able to do it without my wife, honestly, because she's very, very capable operationally, and very good at juggling multiple things. But it is definitely a very difficult thing to do. It would be a lot easier if we just had one service. And every day I question, is it smart to have multiple brands? Is it not? So far it's working for us. I don't know if it's the $100 million idea, but I think it's really great for our customers to know that they can just have a company that can take care of most of the things they need on the outside of their home with the reliability.
Yeah, I'm glad you left that in there of being careful of the distractions and really focusing on the one thing. And it's not going to be instant. It's going to be, I think people are so impatient and want things yesterday. That's why everyone shits the bed on things of like, hey, just do the hard work and maybe in 10, 15 years, you might get there. Anyways,
yeah, usually the shortcut is every service owner wants to add another service. They go, I can't find more window clients. So maybe if I just start doing, landscaping or lawn mowing, and the truth is because they're being lazy and they think that if they just have another service, then people will flock to them. And in a way, it's true. You will get a certain number of customers that come to you, but there's only so many you'll get, before you have to beat the next boss of understanding, like, how do I market myself? How do I make my staff love working here? How do I take care of my clients? And like, those are the real things that unlock the next level and the next level. Adding another service is usually not what I recommend. It's not something that I advise people do. It's especially when you're below several million in revenue. It's like chances are, if you're not getting more business, it's because you suck at sales, you suck at marketing, or you suck at hiring, or your service sucks. And usually the service sucks. 99% of people that I speak to who think they have a great business, they don't, and they don't want to hear it. And I'll show up to their job site, or I'll see them, and they've got some good Google reviews, and that's great. But at the end of the day, if people aren't raving about you and they don't talk actively without you saying anything about how much they love you, then you probably have a lot of work to do in the business.
And speaking on the customer satisfaction, how is that something you guys track? Like, emotions need to be taken out of all of your management meetings. Like, how is that something you guys stay on top of?
There's a number of things. So we reach out to every single client when the job is done, asking how everything went. So we actively seek criticism. So that's a huge part of it. And then every single time someone has even the smallest complaint, it's posted on Slack. We can all see it. We talk about it, and then we track it on a chart. So every year we have a meeting where we have a graph and we look through a pie chart of the reasons people called us back for something. And it's anything as small as we forgot a Tim Hortons cup in their backyard, all the way to, they did shoddy work and there were streaks on the windows, or there was a line that wasn't painted straight. And so I think now we have like an 11.5, 12% touch-up rate where we have to go back to a job, and the goal is to get that as close to 8 as possible next year. So we use that. We also look at tips. So all of our payments are on credit card, and the teams take the payment when they finish a job. So, we don't expect tips. Like, we pay our guys above industry average. Like, our clients are already paying a lot of money. So we tell them actively, like, you do not need to tip, but a lot of them want to. And so, we know kind of a certain average that each team will get if they do 100 homes on how many jobs they get tipped on. And so usually if they're not getting any tips, we know, well, even some clients who don't get the best service still choose to tip. So if you're not getting any tips, you're probably not building much of a relationship with the client, which means clients not leaving that going, wow, I really loved Vince who came and did my house today. They're kind of just showing up, doing the work, and swiping a credit card, which we don't want. So we look at that. We look at how many Google reviews a team gets. So we actually give them a bonus for every 5-star review they get as well. So we kind of triangulate all three of those things. And then, if we get more than 1 or 2 complaints about someone in a given period, we show up to their job site, we check in, we watch them work, we have a manager see what they're doing, we talk to their teammates, we see how they like to work with them. So it's a lot of just like, you really just got to find that kind of yellow flag or that red flag. And then you got to be like a bloodhound and start sniffing out like all of the evidence that you're looking for to back up or disprove your claim, but so that you can move on to your next task and say, okay, John actually is doing really great work, or, John isn't as good as I thought I was. How do we fix this? How do we get him better? And then, rehab and move forward, or maybe he can't work here anymore. So yeah, it's a lot of just like proactive searching.
So just getting to the bottom, like as soon as possible. I know before you're speaking on, one thing is you guys weren't letting people go fast enough was a bottleneck. Like I know a mentor of mine mentioned they're owners of a football team or something, and they're talking, they'd get fired for keeping people too long, but they would never get in shit for letting people go.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think that's, I don't know, just moving quickly. Anyways, Dan, last thing, I'm curious what's next for you guys. What's the next step? You guys are already so profitable with how quick you're growing, which is so impressive at $5 million. What's next going into a slow season like this?
It's just keep doing the work that we've been doing. It's just about not getting ahead of ourselves. It's about just staying the course and building out that foundation. I think that every business, especially in the trade, you've got like your, 3 or 4 core pillars of your foundation when it comes to sales, hiring, let's call it sales, production, and management. And if those things aren't all lined up properly and you scale too quickly, then, everything falls apart. And so right now we kind of bootstrapped it between, myself and my wife and our friends, but we're not going to go and hire 6 salespeople tomorrow because we don't have the systems for building out a sales team yet. So it's next year is going to be about, bringing on a sales manager who doesn't oversell jobs and overpromise things to clients, and who, has a good close rate, but also who underpromises and overdelivers. It's going to be about fine tuning those KPIs we use to track managers, because if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And then it's going to be about getting my hiring process like really rock solid in terms of like those higher level roles. And also we're building a software to kind of manage all of our systems and fine tune all of that on Salesforce too. So rolling that out next year, getting better at Facebook ads too. So a lot of things up in the air. I think the hardest part is really just not getting ahead of myself and allowing us to do those things properly and not look at the numbers as much in terms of, revenue and profit, and just make sure that people are happy and they like working here. And if we can do that for another 5 years, then maybe 5 years from now, we can scale faster and kind of, hit the gas.
I love it. Awesome. And when we met in the summer, the biggest thing I took away was like, there's levels to this shit, and that like you're so humble, and it's so cool to see. And I think part of it's because you've been exposed to so much. And we're talking at the beginning of this chat of like, when you're just blinders are on, you're dialed in. You're like, what do you have to say to those guys just starting out, or maybe they're in their 3rd, 4th, 5th year, they're doing $1 million, $2 million. They're like, okay, I'm kind of good, getting comfortable, because they haven't seen what actually is out there and needs to happen.
Yeah, I would say like 90% of what Alex Hormozy puts out on Instagram or YouTube or wherever you find him is probably speaking directly to you. So he says a lot more than I could in a short time. But yeah, it's like, there's so many sayings I've taken from him that I feel are applicable. Like, the work, the answers you're looking for are usually in the work you're avoiding. There's no magic silver bullet to solve your problems. It's just 1,000 golden BBs. And 99% of the time, it just comes down to like, we're on Instagram, we're on social media, we're looking at all these other owners, we're seeing, people are becoming millionaires by 25 off of crypto, and we want to get there faster. And at the end of the day, it's all a fucking distraction, and it's mostly to boost ego. And, if you really think about what makes you happy and like why you're doing what you're doing, it's because you wanted to grow as a person. And I think we lose sight of that quickly, and we want to grow. We want the way others perceive us to grow more than we want to actually grow. And so usually what it takes to actually grow is to go and put in your 10,000 reps and go and spend 2 weeks in the field with your managers, and to go and sit down for 17 hours and write out an entire system on how you're going to train new employees. But we don't want to do that because it's a lot, seemingly a lot easier. It's not, because it doesn't usually work, but it's seemingly a lot easier to, just hire someone else to figure it out for me. And that usually blows up in your face. And then you waste 3 months instead of 17 hours. And then you're back to square one and you're looking at yourself in the mirror. And so I think that, to someone who's starting out in the trade business, that I would say revenue is vanity and profit is sanity. I would say you don't need a big fancy truck, and you don't need other people to see you on social media. We're a 40-person team and we still haven't even wrapped our vans yet. You make sure you're making money very quickly within the first, few months after you've bought your equipment and whatever it is, because if you're not making money when you start, you probably won't make money later as you grow and you have more expenses. I would say, like, don't be above knocking on doors and doing whatever you have to do to find business. And then if people aren't calling you back and customers aren't saying yes and excited to work with you, it's probably because you either don't have a great service, or because it's not good enough, or you're not marketing or explaining what you're doing enough to other people, and they can't see the value because you're hiding it on an island of information. And so if you can do all those things and just remember that, your staff, work for you, but you work for them even more because they can choose to go and get a job anywhere else and they're choosing to work here. Longevity and loyalty and having people stay with you is worth a lot. And just like not being greedy and comping people properly and making sure that value equation is there. There's obviously a lot, but just, brick by brick, basically.
Play the game.
Yeah. Just focus on eating the dirt and getting your own skill set better, as opposed to getting, your company to hit a number that doesn't actually mean anything at the end of the day.
And I think that's so cool about it, of the speed of learning that's actually required to get where people are wanting to go. There's no course, there's no school, there's nothing around it. It's just, there's no other way around it but doing the shit. And Hermosi said the other day, he's like, I don't care about the $1 billion I want to get to. I care about the person that I'll become to get there.
Yeah.
And there's no other way around that. I found that quite interesting, cool. So anyways,
and the reason that's so hard is because you have to break who you are to get there. Like, you were already the person that you needed to be to get where you wanted to go, then you would already have it. And so by that definition, that means that you have to destroy the person you are now, become a completely different person. And when you have an ego, or you're, attached to who you are, you can't do that because you think you already know everything you need to know. So you prevent yourself from learning. I'm still getting hit with a brick every day with that lesson of just, having to not be attached to what I think is real and just focus on, the truth and who I want to be, and just asking myself every day, this is miserable, but, I have two choices, and which choice is going to bring me closer to being the person that I want to become.
And both decisions are often hard, and the easier ones usually actually way harder in the long run.
Yeah.
But like ignorance debt, like Hermosi said, just paying it off and eating shit. And it's like people are like, what if scared to do things, like what if it doesn't work out? But you think of like, what if it actually does work out, So if
what Layla told me when I said what Layla told me when I met her was, I said there was something I was trying to do, and I was like, I'm kind of afraid of it not working out, and she just
the marketing part, right?
Yeah, and she said you will fail and it won't work out, and I was like, I guess you're right. And she's like, oh yeah, like you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna fuck it up. There's no question. But once you do that, you're gonna learn, and then you can keep doing it. And so I think that kind of gave me permission to be like, okay, like I'm not going to die when this doesn't work out, and it won't work out, but I just need to like move through it faster.
So just get the eating shit out of the way and do it now, opposed to waiting until.
You have to do it. It's not even the eating shit. Like everyone would eat shit if they had a guarantee that you would win after. Like if I told you like work 100, don't sleep and work 120 hours a week every day for 5 years and you'll be a billionaire, you would, like most people would do it. But the problem is that you don't have a guarantee that you'll get there. There's no reward that's guaranteed to you. And so you don't do it. And you're worried what happens if I fail. And so I think the key is really just saying like, I am going to fail. And the faster that I can fail, the faster I can learn. The faster I can learn, the faster I can get where I want to go. And there's no promise of what I'm going to make or how well I'm going to do after. But I do know historically over the last decade that I'm still here and I'm still alive, and I'm arguably better off now than I was before. So something I'm doing must be working. So I'm just going to keep doing that.
Brick by brick, every day, 1%.
Yep.
I love
You got it, brother.
Thank you for your time. Amazing nuggets. I think that this one was great.